book of the face.
Pause that. Boom. What's up, beautiful?
Oh, you talking to me?
I'm else. This thing got me looking super light bright.
Hey, gorgeous. You know you like bright. I gotta fight every night to prove my love. I tell you, you like bright.
Okay. So, okay. Fighting every night to prove my love.
Share.
Okay. All right. Well, we could jump to it if you're ready. Let me
Yeah,
get to my notes.
I'm gonna share out to the platforms because this conversation tonight, honey, this is a necessary conversation.
Absolutely.
This conversation is very necessary.
Absolutely. Okay, it said we live. I'm trying to get to on my page because this is acting. How did we do this last time? 'Cause
What you mean? What you trying to do?
so I am attempting to do what I did last time, which was to be oh, okay. I got it. I got
What you trying to do?
it. I got it. Okay. Boom, we in business.
All right, make sure you turn down your other devices so you don't have no echoes.
Okay, so let me do this. Okay. Oh no, this one gotta be up. And this one go down. Go down on here. Come up on here. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. It's so weird, like being in Zoom and seeing the lapse on there.
That's why you're not supposed to be looking at that. No one's supposed to be looking at Zoom.
See, Zoom is the one that's showing with the hmm. Girl, don't mind me now. Okay. Bam. Okay.
No, it's okay.
Don't
It's
mind me. Don't mind me.
okay. You know, that's that whole perfectionist thing, but you know,
Mhm.
we're gonna get there. We'll
Yeah.
get
See
there.
what was going on? See what I was looking at was the sharing my screen component. Yeah. But
Oh,
it's
you,
okay. We can get to it.
oh,
We
you
can
want
get to it.
to
I'm gonna just
screen?
pull up my notes and go from there. I'm gonna perfect the screen sharing one next time because I just want to get started.
Sound great. Sound great.
Okay. So thank you for joining me again. We are in the building with Shakera. We did this last week and we back for week number 2. Last week's song, we got some great feedback on it. That was Bitch Bad Woman Good. This week is a new topic with a new song. And this week it is 17 by Musiq Soulchild. You feeling that one?
I love that
Let me
song.
see. Alexa, Alexa, play Musiq Soulchild 17.
Teeing Up 17 by Musiq Soulchild on Amazon Music.
You mad loud. Ooh, yeah. 5'7" with light green eyes. Body built like a woman over 25. Plus she puts the whips that the average woman couldn't get. Now she worked about 2 9 to 5. Girlie played the game just a little too mature. Damn, they had everything I was looking for. Things seemed shady when I asked my lady. Meet me at the club, she had trouble at the door. It's when I found out that she was only 17 years old and I couldn't see her no more. All right.
Oh,
So
locking up some young Jones.
we just want to give such
thanks to Musiq Soulchild for being such an artist, to create such a beautiful, fly, dope ass song, but at the same time to speak to something that is so relevant right now. So right now, what's going on in society are these files that just got released. And the biggest story about those files is that kids are in danger all over the world, and that there is a large scale network that are putting kids in danger. And there's a lot of commotion going on in society about why people are not speaking up for it. And the question that I want to propose on today is what's going on in our community to where the numbers in our community are higher than in other communities. I think we're like 4 times as likely to be abused and sexually assaulted than other populations. So I want to look at the hypocrisy. I want to bring some what's the word? Some clarity, some transparency, some realism to the conversation about what's going on in our community to where it's so prevalent. And so one of the things we want to talk about is the sweeping up under the carpet of it, the wall of silence of it, and the environment that supports the continuation of it happening, the women in our family, the men in our family. So my first question would be, do you believe that our culture is secretly supportive of this?
You asking me?
Yeah, so let me bring some examples, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may be young, but you're ready. What do you say? You're ready to learn, right? He says, what? You're
You're
not a little.
a girl.
You're a woman. Okay, so who does not love that song,
Mm.
right? How many people were silent when it came to R. Kelly and Aaliyah? We didn't hear much about that when it was going on, even though it was plain to see. He made a lot of music with that young girl while those rumors were going on. We didn't raise any, collective commotion about it. There was no protesting, there was no pushback. When DMX had Little Vita in the car on Belly, do you remember what scene I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Vita was in the car giving top to DMX's character, and she was clearly a teenager in the movie. No one had discourse about it, no conversation, anything whatsoever. So my question is this, considering how silent we are when we see these things, do you believe that our community is kind of enabling this in our culture?
I mean, the reality is our community, especially in our families, we don't talk about sex. We don't talk about boundaries, and we don't talk about past trauma. And so you have a lot of unresolved disappointments, in families, emotional distance from daughters, mothers projecting their past, sibling rivalry, competition, resentment. There's a lot of things that we don't talk about, or even our young girls, and even us when we were 17. I'm just kind of thinking about where I was at 17 years old. You know, it was a lot of things that I didn't even know how to articulate or express. It was a lot of things that I went through that my mama didn't even know. And so, because we don't talk about it, because we stay silent, it kind of seems like it's excused behavior in a sense,
Mhm.
and we minimize it. So, uh, it's a lot of healing can take place with a conversation, but silence, it leaves everybody in a very vulnerable situation, and we act out children act out of what's going on that they can't articulate. So I
So
think it's our
both of us are mental health professionals, and both of us have spoken substantially to a lot of young women about their experiences with this. A lot of young women who come in for mental health support, they have dealt with sexual trauma. And one of the things that we find with sexual trauma is, in addition to what you're saying of the sweeping it under the rug, we find that it's generational. You've had the parents who have also gone through it. And once again, you're speaking about the inability to have the conversations about it. And then you have, once again, the wall of silence where maybe it's someone in the family and no one wants to speak about it, or they don't want to cause a commotion and have a divide in the family. And I want to speak about the fact that we have to get radical in our families about this. We have to be like, forget it. We have to have the conversations. We cannot. And this is as a community. I don't want this to just be a discussion on this live. I need people to be able to hear this and go home and understand the consequences of this in our families and in our communities. Over the last couple of days, we were listening to Brenda's Got a Baby. And in the song, he's saying, I hear Brenda's got a baby, but she barely got a brain, right? And the gentleman comes right behind him. He says, that's not our problem. It's up to Brenda's family. And Tupac says, well, let me show you how it affects the entire community. Because whatever is happening to your child, my child has to live in that world that is created. So we are all like dealing with the ripple effect of all of our problems that we continue to sweep under the rug. So you might feel like it's going on in just your family and in your home. But one thing that we found with statistics is one child abuse, the chances of you having created a whole nother perpetrator are higher. A lot of, and I'm not, I don't want to put this on a lot of young men, but there are many perpetrators. We're talking about men who come into mental health agencies, whether they're dealing with drugs, they've been abusive to other women, they have the same story that Kevin Gates is speaking about right now, which is that they themselves have been abused. And so you're creating an experience, and you're creating in their mind a way to respond to stimuli. So when a person is put in a situation, the chances of them committing that same thing is higher. So this is how we are continuing to perpetuate this in our community, and why we cannot continue to ignore it. You cannot look at a child and say, I know that you are experiencing this, and then continue to want to stay silent about it. So,
or in addition to stay silent, call them fast tail little girls. She's a hot girl. She too grown, or she too womanish. That little girl this, that little girl that. Because we all have either seen or been around or experienced a situation where we're looking at someone in our family or down the street, around the corner, where the first thing we say is that little girl fast, that little girl hot in the pants.
so let's talk about that. I think one of the things that causes that is this idea of queens in a castle. Like they say, you can't have two queens in a home. I want to I want to understand, what is it about some women where they look at their own daughters as competition.
Mm.
I spoke to this young girl. She and her sister had both gotten an STD from her mother's boyfriend. These little girls were in school age, not middle school, they were in elementary.
Police.
The way that they found out is that the youngest little girl had to go to the hospital because she had uterine prolapse.
What
And
is
they
that?
wound up, the muscles in your collapses, like, or prolapse, like, kind of, you know, he gave them both STDs and harmed that little girl like that. Me personally, I cannot for the life of me fathom how something like that can be going on in a home and the mother don't know anything about it. There are mothers who will stay silent to keep that man around. I know that there are individuals who've sold their children for drugs or for money. They'll compromise like that. But I do want to speak to the idea of the competition that women feel with young girls. Not even just a mother to a daughter. There are women who will talk about a little girl in their community knowing that she's being assaulted by an older gentleman. He could be in his 20s, he could be in his 30s. And instead of saying, oh, he messing with that little girl over there, they'll talk about the girl like she's fast or give her a name in a community, whereas she probably doesn't have any guidance or anything at home telling her that, baby, you don't have to go along with him with this. Or let's call the police. Or, what's going on to where you feel like you have to go with him. Like there's no one saying what are the reasons or causes that could be contributing to this little girl doing this. Because the truth of the matter is, we're talking about stages of development.
Correct. Correct.
A lot of these girls, these kids, I don't, kids, they're, I want to be very candid and specific about the terminology because right now they're using the term underage women politically when it comes to assault, sexual assault, and statutory rape and all of that because they want to minimize the language of harm. They want it to seem like consensual sex is just being had by people with differing ages. But I want to be clear that these are children. These are children. And when we're talking about stages of development, you cannot explain away and say, well, we're just different ages, because the truth of the matter is, it cannot be consensual if they don't have the level of understanding to even have autonomy over their body and their decisions and what can come of it. They can't consent to the idea of you might have STDs, you might anything, and you can change and alter their lives for the worse, that in a way that they cannot come back. And Brenda's got a baby, she's 12 years old, and she's pregnant and has to deal with a life-altering decision based on a grown man who made that decision for her. So it breaks my heart when it comes to women. This is actually my personal story. I was being assaulted by someone, and I had women coming at me asking me about him as if they wanted him and I was in the way, type stuff.
Hmm.
I'm like, at what point do we protect the girls? Do we see kids as kids? Or it's just like the little boy who got killed by the police officers. He was 12 years old and they described him as a man, but he was like 12 years old. Do Black kids get to be kids at
Hmm.
all? You know? And this over sexualization is not new. The oldest movie, the first movie, was The Birth of a Nation. And in that movie, Black people were villainized. Black men were made to look like criminals and rapists who wanted nothing more but to harm white women, and the women were overly sexualized. And the truth of the matter is, they have never let up off of that stereotype for us. And if I'm going back into our conversation from last week, and we're connecting it to that movie and what we're talking about today, the idea that our image has been curated and crafted for us, and the fact that we just eat it up and accept who they tell us that we are. We absolutely have to get away from eating whatever they serve us.
Hmm.
And I'm talking about entertainment and the idea that these little girls have to grow up so fast. Because not only are our adults looking at them like that, but they're acting like that. So We're talking about little girls who might not be fast, but one of the pieces of pushback that I get from men is that they are. Now, I do know that there are some little girls who are a little bit more advanced, right? But my question would be, first of all, I just want to talk about Kevin Gates. Kevin Gates said something the other day, and I found it to be very profound, specifically because of the way that Shannon Sharp reacted to it. Shannon Sharp said that, huh? You gonna do what? And then he tried to tell him that that wasn't his job, that he should leave that up to God to respond to whatever and let God handle it. Kevin Gates said, no. He said, no, we should deal with that. We as men should deal with that. So that is a whole nother conversation about how Kevin Gates is a lone ranger in this discussion in regards to our community and the way that even men approach this situation. I brought that up because even men, it appears, can't differentiate between when they're looking at a little girl versus a woman. Has the Black girl been so sexualized that even our men can't tell when they're supposed to protect them? Have the man gene in our men been so suppressed that they don't understand when they should protect a child? They can't identify a child, and then they don't understand when they should protect. It just brings me back to the idea of society not knowing what a woman is. Society don't know what a woman is, and men don't know what a child is. It's disheartening. It really is disheartening. And so I just want to amplify Kevin Gates' statements. It was gangster. It was, he stood on his square. And I thought that it was refreshing. And if I could plaster that all over the place, I would. If I could have it taught in elementary school classes and have it blasted in every nonprofit that supports and helps little boys, I would put it there. And it seems kind of drastic because he was talking about harming someone if they unaliving someone if they touch children and women, because something inside of him says I'm supposed to protect women and children. It breaks my heart to feel like a lot of men would not respond the same way.
And what was interesting to me in that conversation was when Kevin Gates talked about, after putting that out in his music, which is why Shannon Sharp mentioned it, because he had created a song and he talked about what happened to him as a young.
Yes.
He said he went to the gym and men, big buff men, big dudes was coming up to him, hugging him and thanking him for sharing that testimony, because they have the same testimony as him that also happened to them, and that I congratulate him for being brave enough to share that, because men don't share that. It makes them feel like something is wrong with them, makes them feel like their sexuality is going to be questioned, it makes them feel insecure or whatever the case may be, less like a man or whatever, so they don't share that. But although they don't share it, it still comes out in other ways, whether it's hating women, whether it's not protecting women, whether it's, being violent or verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, or whatever those things is, because there's some unaddressed issues there. And speaking of that, because we both know people that happened to, we both know boys that happened to, as well as girls that happened to when they was young by older family members or close people to the family. It don't just start with somebody being violently assaulting you. It starts with grooming. It starts with grooming and preying on you, being nice, giving you some candy,
Yeah,
telling you look mature for your age.
because it happens so young. Like
Yeah.
I know people who have begun to be groomed as young as 4 years old, you know, and it's sad. what happens with that is I saw Oprah. She was having a panel and she was talking about children and how they enjoy the sensation of being touched in this way. And she was trying to make it okay for, you know how you got the LGBTQ? Well, the plus is making room for minor attracted people. There's legislation going forward now that is trying to get minor attracted people recognized as just another personality trait. Once upon a time, it was characterized as a mental illness, and then it was just taboo, and now they're trying to open it up as just a personality trait, saying they need help, and then from there it'll just be a normal part of life. They're trying to make it normal. That's why I think that the people who want to spread that, the T and the P and the plus and all of that, that's why I believe they have this agreement with the Muslim Sharia law, because they can marry as young as 9 years old in that community. Soon as she begins to bleed, which I have a sister who got her menstrual when she was 8. So once they begin to bleed, they feel like they are deemed women and that they can marry them and begin to have sex with them. So I believe that's one of the reasons why that's being pushed the way that it is. But Oprah was trying to explain a way that kids can have those sensations and feel good just like adults. And for me, I would explain that as a natural biological reaction. If you get hit in your funny bone, you're going to have a reflex. If somebody puts a feather on your arm, you're going to get goosebumps. If someone touches your private part, you're going to get a reaction, but that doesn't mean that you are supposed to do that to that child, and that that makes it okay, and that that child knows how to comprehend and fully understand what is happening to them. And it doesn't give you the right to proceed when they don't have the rationale to consent or not consent or understand the ramifications of whatever is going to come behind that action. So going back to the men and Kevin Gates with that song that he came out with expressing that, I want to commend him for that as well, because I feel like it's freeing for some men. The freeing aspect is in a it goes with what you were talking about, how they lash out because it's so bottled up, because a piece of your manhood is taken away from you. And a lot of times when a man doesn't feel like a man with a woman, he feels like he has to be even more masculine and controlling of her. That's where you get this abusive mentality and mindset and energy towards women. But if they had been able to be free of that, maybe they would be able to process their masculinity and their trauma and their pain in a way that they don't have to abuse other people, whether it's other little boys, women, or even themselves. They don't have to be destructive. So I just feel like there should be more of that conversation that Kevin was having. And I don't see it enough, you know, especially because like right now in your mental health agency, the majority of your clients are men. And a lot of these men have violent rap sheets. And when we're talking to them and we're hearing their stories, it is just that. It is just that. So I always like to say that the safety of women cannot come at the expense of the mental health of men. If we really want safe spaces in the Black community, we are going to have to address what is going on with little boys and how safe little boys are not, because those little boys who are abused come strong grown men.
Yeah, for sure.
And if they're not able to process what they're dealing with and going through, they become menaces to society. And they become an unsafe space for the little girls and the little boys. I like to speak to little girls because we are girls, we are women. But the truth of the matter is, our little boys are no safer than the girls. And that's just the truth of the matter,
That's
you
it's a
know?
sad truth. It's definitely it's sad. You know, I mean, protect our boys too, for sure.
Yes. So, coming back to Musiq Soulchild's song, that's really the crux of the conversation. The crux of the conversation is dealing with the people who don't see it the way that Musiq Soulchild saw it. Musiq Soulchild ran away from her, essentially. He was like, this little girl coming on to me, she want me, she womanish, maybe she has been assaulted as a little girl and now she's hypersexualized and, she got it going on. She in the club, she got to, trying to do. But he's like, when I realized what was going on, I'm like, nah. So the conversation for me really is, how do we speak to grown men and speak to their moral compass?
Mm,
You know,
mm,
because not only do you need to run away from the fast girls, but the girls, what is going on where you feel the need to take advantage of someone? And it's the same thing with women. There are some women who take advantage of kids as well.
Talk about it.
You know,
Talk about
there, I know I have a friend who has that experience. And so, and I do have a male friend and a female friend who went through that with a woman. So I know that it's not as common, but it still has the same effects when it happens.
it. So we talking about we talking about women. Let me kind of clarify for me because it's two different things that I'm trying to understand. Are you talking about women who refer to girls intentionally using them to trap or set up men or other boys? You know, like manipulating girls, regard or boys, regardless of gender, using sex as a leverage, to
I do think it's a nuanced conversation because both things are true,
Mm,
right? There are some girls who are using some young girls who use their sexuality as setup queens and trap queens and stuff like that. That is very true. But, I was specifically referring to the counterparts of the groomers, the male groomers, those who are preying on young kids just for their their perversion. They're
mm,
doing it in the quiet, in the dark. They don't want anyone else to know about it. They tell the children, don't tell anyone, to keep quiet, stay silent. If you tell anyone, I'll hurt you or I'll hurt your mom or your dad. It's those people. And what's important about that conversation is to be able to have that kind of conversation with a child. That means that child already knows you. That means that child trusted you and that the people in the lives of that child trusted you.
mm,
And so I just feel like that conversation needs to be public and it needs to be widespread because it's such a in the dark thing. And that conversation with Kevin Gates and Shannon Sharp was just a light to the dark type of thing, you know, because not only did he speak to the people who are abused, he was speaking to people who abuse. He was saying, yes, you too. If I know that you are doing that, you would be one of those people who I would think should not be here any longer.
mm,
Those kind of conversations, like say Kevin Gates is someone who a lot of people in a certain demographic they respect, that they put him on a pedestal, they look at him a certain way, cool guy, down guy, like someone that they relate to and they connect with because of his music and where he's from. They may not have known that he carried that kind of perspective because some men, and there are many of them who abuse kids, they're still out here every day roaming around with us. They're undercover, they're covert. You can't always look at someone and say, oh, he's an abuser. Of a certain type of energy come out of the man, you say, man, he a slime ball, he's sleazy, you may be able to, but what he did with that conversation is people who might have thought that he was like them, he said, no, you not like me, because if you was like me, you wouldn't do this. There are, I just think about it like this. If somebody's doing a music video in the hood and you got the whole block packed full of dudes, me knowing statistics, me being in mental health, being in the realm of mentoring young people and understanding what we come across every day in these kids and their stories, I know that there's a great number of people in that crowd who have either touched children or have or are being touched themselves. But when I look at a group of men, just not even just men, just people, I'm analyzing statistics in my head the whole time. X amount of these people have STDs. X amount of these people are dealing with this. X amount of because these are the things that we're dealing with every day. Once you see something, you can't unsee it, right? And so the truth of the matter is, if we take all the Kevin Gates fans and put them in a room, there's a great number of them who have touched somebody. And when he spoke to one, he spoke to all. He spoke to the ones who were in his shoes, and he spoke to the ones who were in the shoes of his perpetrator. And everybody heard him. What speaks to me about him saying it is the idea that a perpetrator who listened to him, who heard him, may sit down, look at a child that they have done something to before or want to do something to, and think twice. Maybe they say, I'm sorry. Maybe they repent and turn away and don't do it ever again.
For sure.
That is the power of Kevin saying that.
Influence. That's the power of
And
influence.
it can't be understated because some messages are just so unpopular. It's beyond taboo. It's vulnerability, it's exposure. There's shame that comes along with that. Oh, you had your manhood taken away. I was a child. What do you mean? Even so, men find it hard to have that conversation. But for me, I understand that women need men to protect them from other men. Women, we want to say F them men, this and that. But the truth of the matter is, you need protection, and a woman can't protect you. Even a group of women can't protect you sufficiently long enough. You need men to stand up. We need men to stand up and be able to say, we ain't going for that. And what Kevin did was say, we ain't going for that. What Musiq Soulchild did was say, we ain't going for that. That was a powerful song to put out into the world, a powerful message to put out into the world when you have so many people talking about age ain't nothing but a number. You may be young, but you're ready, and all that type of stuff. I'm in love with a Juve type stuff. And we love those songs, but at the end of the day, we have to be real about the messaging we are putting out. And we understand based on our conversation we had last week how powerful and influential these songs are. Like more marriages have been broken up over the last 3 decades because the messaging and in the music. Whitney Houston got a song talk about saving all my love for you when she's waiting on a married man to come see her. It didn't just start with the hip hop girls. The R&B girls were saying, what she said, it wasn't your man, but it was last night or something like that. He may be yours, but he's mine. You may have had him once, but I got him all the time, type thing. Like those messages, just like in the 2000s, the 2010s, there was a lot of alcohol promotion. Like drink, get drunk, turn up, get a bottle. Like that's was a message that was promoted in a lot of music. So anyway, the message today is the culture of addressing and being real and being able to speak to an epidemic in our community. And it is epidemic in our community. It's just quiet and undercover. So what I want to say to young women is If someone comes up to you, even if they're your age, you need to understand consent. Consent is not you just giving in to him. If you didn't want to give yourself to someone, you don't have to. Don't let someone, if someone is coercing you, manipulating you, telling you things, like if someone came up to you and said, let's lay down and have sex, and your mind didn't automatically say, I want to do that. Everything that came after that was you being manipulated and coerced, and that is grooming energy. That is rape energy. You have to learn the word autonomy, and that consent and autonomy goes hand in hand.
And
If
can,
you,
so when you talk about autonomy, can you talk a little bit more about what autonomy is? Like, my body is not my currency, and our environment is hypersexual, like you said, especially with the music, the TikTok trends, older attention, peer pressure or peer competition. If she doesn't know her value, then she will let culture price it for her.
so autonomy starts very young. It's the idea that our parents said, because I say so. We have to, as adults, learn that our children are human beings with souls, and they have their own mind, their own spirit. They should have autonomy, which is the right to their own self, their own energy. If a child says, I don't, if your child is showing signs that they don't want to hug or kiss auntie or uncle such and such, you shouldn't force them to do it. Even a 3-year old, a 2-year old child should have autonomy, which is the right to their own space, their own body, their own energy. If they are not comfortable, if you are not comfortable with something, your right to say no, that is just simplification of you having autonomy over yourself. You make the decisions for you and what you want to do. So if you're a young girl, easily influenced at a certain age, you are so easily influenced. You don't want nobody to be mad at you. You don't want the boys to talk about you. You don't want the girls to say you basic. But at the end of the day, you don't want to do this thing. You have to understand that you are cool to be able to stand in your own autonomy and say, no, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. And I'm not going to do that. Cute little boy on the team, he popular. You don't want to have sex, but you're feeling like you have to. No, don't. To the little boys and the young men and the grown men, if you have to say a million words to a girl to get her to change her mind about wanting to or not wanting to have sex with you, you are operating in manipulation, coercion, grooming, and ultimately, if you get it and she told you she didn't want to before, even if you do get it, that is still rape. You have raped a girl if you had to manipulate her into having sex with you when she didn't want to.
And adding to that point, I want to make sure, because I thought this was important, especially as a boy mom. I have 3 sons, and one of my sons will be 19 before he graduates from high school. And so I think it's so important for us protecting our sons as well.
Yes,
We
yes,
understand
yes,
consequences as it relates to statutory rape. And you can
yes,
be 17, about to turn 18, you could be in high school, you could be a
yes,
junior or senior, and if they got a ninth grade, 10th grader in there that's 2 years younger than you,
yes.
or under the age of 18, you can possibly get a charge or be registered as a sex offender or even lose opportunities to get enrolled in college, job and employment barriers.
I
You
just saw a player, a young man who was a star in his college, on his college team. It was a big college, and he was about to, he had trajectory to go to the NFL. Some girl accused him of rape. And when I tell you that ruined that boy's life, I think he went to jail, did some years. Come down the line, the girl confesses and says,
can.
I lied. He can't get none of that back. None of it back. He can't get the opportunities. It's all gone. life down the drain. I mean, he can overcome it.
That's an unfortunate situation for
That's
sure
a
happened to him. But it's important for those kids that's those because we talk about fast tail girls, but there's also some boys that's trying to relieve themselves. I got a
and
couple
the
of
culture teaches them. J. Cole had a song that on his new album, and he was basically saying, they're asking him if he got rubbers, and if he ain't effing on nothing, then he ain't doing, what he need to do as a young man. He need to be effing on something. So this idea of this race to get a bunch of girls puts them in a situation where they have to convince girls to be their victim,
Mm,
you know? So this is when we go into talking about culture because the boys are being taught that there's nothing wrong with this. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is a rite of passage for me. If the girl wants to be, allow me to use her, if she want to be a hoe, then, I'm supposed to have hoes. But for
mm.
the girls, it's you fast. You're a fast teller girl. But I truly believe many fast teller girls are really just girls who don't have autonomy and the wherewithal and the mental development. They haven't been taught by anybody. They're just out there learning on the fly and don't know how to say no. They haven't learned how to advocate for themselves yet. Some women don't learn how to properly advocate for themselves until they're in their 30s. Yeah, Miami, once again, this girl acting like she'd like to get peed on, but then come back around, oh, I want to be respected. Oh, you didn't like that. You only liked it because a man told you you should like it, and you wanted the perks of that came with that man, whether it was his attention or his affection or whatever else. So it's the same thing with the little girls. You want his attention because he's popular. You don't want him to say something bad about you, so you're gonna go along with it because you don't want that situation when you go back to school. But you got a whole nother situation when the boy turns around and says, oh, I had that. I
It's
got
like,
the draws. Got the draws. Got the draws.
yeah,
Kanisha,
I
I
mean,
was
it's
on
like
live, girl.
it's like instead of looking at this little girl, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a parent, whether you're a neighbor, whatever, instead of looking
Mhm.
at her and calling her fast, I think the question should be, what is she trying to prove? What need is she trying to meet? And a lot of times, like you was talking about Young Miami, she want to feel chosen. She want
Mhm.
validation. She want
Mhm.
attention.
Mhm.
She want social media influence. She wants to be an influencer. But ultimately it boils down to identity crisis or identity
Back to the
confusion.
men.
Yeah.
The men don't feel the need or the value of why they should be protectors, so they leave their children. When Kevin Gates
That's the
was
big effect.
talking, when
Or the
Kevin Gates was talking about what he had to do to somebody, Kevin Gates said that publicly. If Kevin Gates got daughters and people know Kevin Gates' daughters, I promise you ain't nobody about to play with Kevin Gates' daughters,
because
right?
they know they got a daddy coming behind them.
They know they got a daddy coming behind. What's crazy to me is sitting opposite of him is Shannon Sharp. He have daughters. But guess what he told his daughter? Publicly, you got to fend for yourself. Wouldn't help his child wind up giving all his money to somebody else, little girl. Somebody else child. I think the girl he had to pay that $50 million to was like 19 years old. She was still a teenager. But you sacrifice your own child. And you're sitting here with daughters asking a man why he would defend or protect women and children. No wonder you got girls going into the streets looking for love, looking in all the wrong places for love, willing to compromise themselves because the truth of the matter is God put us here for love. We are human. There's nothing wrong with wanting love. But when you don't have it, love is a drug. And it's not even a drug, it's medicine. Love is medicine, it's healing. So we don't have to feel bad about one. I don't want to put such a negative connotation on love like it's a drug. No, Love is a need, it's a necessity, it's healing, it's like water and air and everything else. God put us here to love and to be loved. And we do have a responsibility of, as parents, to cultivate our children in an environment and atmosphere of love and safety. Because then, where's the protection for the little girls and the little boys?
Mm.
You know? So, little girls and little boys need to understand consent. They need to understand, boys need to be aware of their energy when they're feeling like they got a GT. When I say GTD, that's from Martin. He had the episode when he was in court. He was like, "Did you get the jaws? GTD, GTD. I got the jaws." But the young men have to understand the energy they're operating in when they're trying to connect with a young woman. Are you just trying to get the draws, or do you have to manipulate her to do so? And young girls need to understand their autonomy over their own bodies. They need to listen to themselves when they're feeling uncomfortable, even when they're going into certain spaces with certain young men. If you have that feeling in your spirit, every step that you take, you're walking closer and closer to danger, maybe you need to leave out of that room, leave out of that house, go somewhere else, call somebody. I don't feel safe. Because the truth of the matter is, you might be called fast when you leave out of there. You might have got raped and somebody gonna say you was fast. You didn't feel like you got raped because there wasn't no fight, but the fight was inside of you, in your spirit, when somebody took something that you didn't really want to give to them, you know?
And you don't have to.
And you
You
don't
do
have
not
to.
have to.
You
If
don't have to.
you're not feeling it and you don't want it, you don't have to people please. You don't have to feel bad about saying no. No means no. You need to
No
feel,
means no. No means no.
and I don't care. I know I was really coming up. I was a little bad child, but
Mm-hmm.
I also didn't feel safe calling my mama when I need help, especially because most of the times I got myself in situations that I didn't want her to find out about. But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, your mother loves you.
Mm-hmm.
She's supposed to love you. And if she don't love
Mm-hmm.
you, somebody love you. Somebody, you can call somebody you know
Mm-hmm.
to come and get you, to
Mm-hmm.
come and help you, to come and protect
Mm-hmm.
you. Whether it's a female or male, a friend or a pastor, a teacher, somebody, you can call somebody when you're feeling that you need to be protected, that you're in a
A
situation that
gentleman called me last night when he was talking about his 14-year-old daughter, and he was saying how he was frustrated because right now she's getting to that point where she's too grown to be told anything, and she want to smoke and she want to do what she want to do. And he was saying how, he's a man, so man, like, "Arr, you gotta show you this lion roar. I don't roar like your mama, I roar like a man." And so maybe that's gonna get it together. I'm a roar at her, but these kids, they different.
they're
You roar
different.
at them, they go in the opposite direction. So what I told him was, I said, this is what you need to do. You need to give her as much information as you can. You've been out there, you've been a young man, you had your way with girls and this and that for many, many years. And that's why you're so angry, because you know that that could happen to her. So what you do is you give her as much knowledge and information as you can. Tell her what's going on about the pros and cons of smoking, if she's smoking. Tell her to watch her friends. Like, do them friends really have her back? Do they envy her? Do they be doing snake stuff to her when they go in different places? Like, give her as much information about everything that's going on around her, and let her know that she's safe, even if she get in trouble, to call you. Because what we have done as parents a lot of times, once we get to the point where we see our children about to start being disobedient and getting in trouble, we're ready to let them go to the streets. We start saying, fuck them children. We have to be mindful of the spaces that we get in with our children when we're ready to sacrifice them. And the sacrifice doesn't start in that moment when they start getting bad. It starts in those moments when we disregard them.
Mm.
you know? So I said, give her all the information that you could possibly give her so that she can be prepared because children are going to mess up. That's what they do. But they need to know that they can call you even if they're in trouble. I don't care if, you know, somebody tugging on her, clothes is ripped up. Call me, I'm coming.
For real.
I told you not to do that. You did it anyway. I don't care. Call me, I'm coming. A lot of parents be so frustrated with their children going the way that they don't want them to go that they write them off and they cut them off and they say, you know, F you to their own children. And the truth of the matter is it's not fair.
Mhm.
What did you do when you were that age? Where
And
were you?
I think one thing that often kind of gets overlooked, especially in our community, because we all have a past. We have,
Yes,
we as parents, we have a past. We were 17, we were 16, we were
absolutely.
15, we was 14. I think it's so important, especially when we have grown, we've matured. Sometimes we forget the dumb shit that we
Mhm.
were a part of as well. So
Absolutely.
it's so healthy to talk to our children and be honest to them. Let them know how we messed up. Let them know
Mhm.
the bad choices that we made. Let them know how we put
Mhm.
ourselves in certain situations and that we don't want that for them. I made that
Absolutely.
mistake, so you don't have to. This is
Absolutely.
what happened to me. I did the same thing you think you're trying to do and get away with it. It's cool, it's okay. This is how it affected my life. And be honest.
I
It
just
ain't gonna
wish
be
that, kids could receive that, but they can't. Something happens with them in their minds. It goes cycle when they be thinking they smarter than their parents. You don't know nothing. It's like it's from the age of like 13 all the way to like 22. Like when they made like 22 to 25, then they start saying, you know what, I'm dumb. Mama, how did you do this? They don't know that they don't know nothing, for a while for a while. And sometimes you look
you know
up
what
with a great one, with an amazing, immaculate one that just, goes through their teenage years, substantially calm and reserved and they listen to everything. That's very rare. Parents don't need to feel bad if they, the word says train them up in the way that they should go. And when they get older, they will not depart. It doesn't say anything about that time in between. The time in between, they're going to mess up, they're going to bump their head. And it's them messing up and bumping their heads that gives them the gratitude in their older years for what God has taught them and that they were able to overcome.
Yeah, for sure.
But as parents, that has to be the most challenging thing because you have lost friends already. You have seen people pass away already. You have the reference of life that the kids don't have, which is all the reason why we cannot allow kids to make grown-up decisions because they don't have the life references to understand what they are doing and
Right.
why adults should feel ashamed of allowing themselves to take advantage of the little ones.
Mm,
25 is what the studies show is when your brain is considered somewhat fully developed.
mm. I know some people 50 still 25 mentally. So I guess that's when it's completely stopped developing altogether.
Because see, at that point, you have to want to grow your brain.
Yeah.
You got to want it. Like at that point, it's like you have to go within, you have to go without, you have to start observing, you have to understand, you have to ask yourself questions. Who am I in this world? What feeds me? What strengthens me? What drains me? Like these are important. It becomes a conversation with your spirit to cultivate your mind after that. But I would hope that we would raise our children in such a way that they would cultivate their morals and their principles from a young age. But when we took our children out of church and we took prayer out of schools and we had the great turning away when everybody just started disrespecting the church and the church started disrespecting itself,
Mm,
then we took sound doctrine away from our children and now everything is lawless, especially when once again you've put the fruit of good and evil in their hand.
mm.
And they were raised on all the knowledge in the world in a brain that doesn't understand how to process what they are receiving. So then you get a 14, 15-year-old who now feels invincible and like everybody in the world is dumb except for them. And they have the knowledge of good and evil. They think they know more than anybody else has ever known ever in the world before them. You know?
For sure.
So the most we can do is give them knowledge and wisdom and a safe place to land.
That's a gift. That's a gift. Even the serpent, the snake, give a good gift to a child.
Mhm.
Child asks for bread, he ain't gonna give him a rock, you know. So the best thing we can give to God, if we don't have nothing, you know, is we can give them a foundation. We can give them.
How much more can we do if even the wicked give love to their close ones? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I think we touched on the majority of what we wanted to touch on. I did have some notes about just like different things in pop culture, but it was just more or less just emphasizing the idea of how much of hypocrites we are as a society. This whole idea with Drake last year, the in the Kendrick Lamar, the highlight of the song was that he's supposed to be someone who messes with a minor. And it was a cool song. I like the song. I don't like the idea of people being accused of things without proof, but that's, small beans. My issue is the statistics and the fact that we're singing a song and we go home and ignore the eyes that are welled up with tears of someone whose name we know, whose birthdays we celebrate, and we ignore them. And we ignore their discomfort when they're around someone else that we know their name and we love them. And so we put the bird box blindfolders on and act like we don't see the abuse that's being done right in our homes with our loved ones. That is the hypocrisy that my notes were highlighting with some of the things that I wanted to show and demonstrate. But I think we know that that's what's going on in our communities because of the statistics.
Mm.
And I don't know too many women without that story. And that's sad. The fact that I know so many with that story got me rolling my eyes at the people saying that online or singing that song and having all the performative outrage when it's not translating into the homes of these children. That's my issue,
Mm.
you know. So the best thing that I can do is just give voice and wisdom, the same thing that I tell parents to do. Give your children as much knowledge and as much wisdom as possible. So my knowledge to the young boys is make sure you're not manipulating no girls and forcing them to do some things that they don't want to do. And young girls, understand that you have autonomy and that you understand that you have the right to reject your consent. You don't have to give consent. You can save that. And the truth of the matter is, if someone is angry and a bad person and is trying to manipulate you, there's a science to sex. You don't want to have sex with that person anyway because you share spirits with, you become one with someone you have sex with. So that's a whole nother conversation. But definitely want to use this series to give as much knowledge and information to the youth as possible. So the message today is thank you to Musiq Soulchild
Mhm.
for this song and for being a stand-up guy to be able to put that message out because it is wisdom that has been disseminated in the form of art. I want to give a shout out to Kevin Gates
Mm.
for the song that he made about his experience and also standing on his square. Because that man asked that question 50 11 ways in a matter of 5 seconds. And Kevin Gates every time said, nah, I stand on what I said. Yeah, I will do that. I have done that and will do that again. What's up? So shout out to Kevin Gates for being an example for men being able to stand on protecting women and children, because at the end of the day, we can talk about a million things. The only thing that's going to help us as Black people is to understand that family and community is everything, and we got to protect that.
For sure.
Period.
For sure.
So you got anything, last thoughts or whatever you want to add to?
I would say my last thoughts would be to the adults, to the parents. Our daughters don't need shame. They need guidance. And our sons don't need silence. They need to be educated.
Yeah.
Our community doesn't need denial. We need accountability. And we need to be there for each other. And we need to protect our children, our daughters and our sons. And so, last question is, where were you at 17? Drop it in the comments. Let us know. Where were you? Where were you? Where were you at 17? Who was that? Who was that?
That's a great question.
Where were you?
That's a great question.
Mhm.
And encouraging you to have empathy. Grown women, I need you to look at the young girls around you and have empathy for them. And if you see them going away, just give them, even if it's just one bit of information and wisdom. Don't villainize them. That would be my call to action, if any. Remember, you were once 17. Amen. So thank you to everybody who joined us. Did y'all have anything to input to the conversation? Y'all got any comments? Anything?
Oh, wow. We had some viewers. Thank y'all for viewing. I sure ain't see y'all down there.
Yeah. Thank you, Nookie. Thank you, Nita. Thank you, Conker. Thank you, Coco, Uncle Co. Yay.
My dad
Thank y'all
in
for
the
coming.
building.
Oh, what's up, Vito? What up? Thank y'all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I hope you guys continue to tune in as we proceed with this series every Thursday. Thank y'all so much. All right, and until next time, deuces.